beautiful people. To all of you, thank you for stopping by again and sticking around. For those who are new, welcome to OMY's ASMR Labyrinth. I'm OMY. So thank you so much. Today I'm going to be reading chapter 8 and 9 of the Ickabog. By J.K. Rowling. The Ickabog. I really like the cover of this book. I think it's really pretty. I like the colors and the little designs of everything, I guess. It's in the book. I really hope you guys are enjoying this book. I am determined to finish the book. I haven't read a full book in a very long time. Myself. I've been reading The Never-Ending Story. It's very different from the movie. I'm stuck in technically what would be the second half, which would be the second movie. And it's completely different. So, I haven't finished it yet. But so far, as it's almost towards the end of the book, it's actually a really good book. It's actually more interesting than that movie. It's like when people say the book is better than the movie. Now I understand. What is that mark on my face? What is that? That's so weird. It looks very pronounced, but I don't feel anything. And when I stretch my skin, you don't see anything. Oh, is that what it is? I try not to make any expressions, but I guess that one. I'm gonna take the cover off. So, wondering what books are you reading now? I'm looking up because my bookshelf is right in front of me, and I have quite a few different genres. I like not little kid books, but I have the full collection of Lemony Snicket, Fortunate Events. I like the movie, then I like the show, and I had to buy the whole collection. Ask me if I read them. They look nice on my bookshelf, and the pages are like kind of raw. They're not as smooth, and I absolutely love that. Let's get started because that's what you're here for. Let me get comfortable. Let's see. The Day of Petition, Chapter 8. Selfish, vain, and cruel. Selfish, vain, and cruel. The words echoed in King true, could it? It took Fred a long time to fall asleep, and when he woke in the morning, he felt, if anything, worse. He decided he wanted to do something kind, and the first thing that occurred to him was to reward Beamish's son, who would defend him against that nasty little girl. So he took a small medallion that usually hung around the neck of his favorite hunting dog, asked the maid to thread ribbon through it, and summoned the Beamishes to the palace. Bert, whom his mother had pulled out of class and hurriedly dressed in a blue velvet suit, was struck speechless in the presence of the king, which Fred enjoyed. And he spent several minutes speaking kindly to the boy, while Major and the Miss Beamish nearly burst with pride in their son. Finally, Bert returned to school with his little gold medal around his neck, and was made much of in the playground that afternoon by Roderick Roach, who was usually his biggest bully. Daisy said nothing at all, and when Bert caught her eye, he felt hot and uncomfortable, and shoved the medal out of sight beneath his shirt. The king, meanwhile, still wasn't entirely happy. An uneasy feeling stayed with him, like indigestion, and again he found it hard to sleep that night. When he woke the next day, he remembered that it was the day of Petition. The day of Petition was a special day held once a year, when the subjects of cornucopia were permitted an audience with the king. Naturally, these people were carefully screened by Fred's advisors before they were allowed to see him. Fred never dealt with big problems. He saw people whose troubles could be solved with a few gold coins and a few kind words. A farmer with a broken plow, for instance, or an old lady whose cat had died. Fred had been looking forward to the day of Petition. It was a chance to dress up in his finest clothes, and he found it so touching to see how much he meant to ordinary people of Cornucopia. Fred's dressers were waiting for him after breakfast with a new outfit he requested just the previous month: white satin pantaloons and matching doublet with gold and pearl buttons, a cloak edged with ermine and lined in scarlet, and white satin shoes with gold and pearl buckles. His valet was waiting with the golden tongs, ready to curl his mustache, and the page boy stood ready with a number of jeweled rings on a velvet cushion, waiting for Fred to make his decision. "Take all that away. I don't want it," said King Fred crossly, waving at the outfit the dressers were holding up for his approval. The dressers froze. They weren't sure they'd heard correctly. King Fred had taken an immense interest in the progress of the costume, and had requested an addition of the scarlet lining and fancy buckles himself. "I said, take it away," he snapped. When nobody moved, "Fetch me something plain. Fetch me that suit I wore to my father's funeral." Is your Majesty quite well?" inquired his valet, as the astonished dressers bowed and hurried away with the white suit. He returned in a double-quick time with the black one. "Of course I'm well," snapped Fred, "but I'm a man, not a fribbling popinjay." He shrugged on the black suit, which was with the plainest he owned, though still rather splendid, having silver edging to the cuffs and collar, and onyx and diamond buttons. Then, to the astonishment of the ballet, he permitted the man to curl only the very ends of his mustache, before dismissing both him and the page boy bearing the cushion full of rings. "There," thought Fred, examining is in one of my best colors. So unusual, speedy. Had Fred been getting dressed, the Lord Spittleworth was making one Fred's servant take earwax out of his ears, and Lord Flapoon was guzzling a plate of Duke's Delights, which he'd ordered from the kitchens, were caught by surprise and came running out of their bedrooms, pulling on their waistcoats and hoping as they pulled on their boots. "Hurry up, you lazy chaps," called King Fred as the two lords chased him down the corridor. "There are people waiting for my help, and would a selfish king hurry to meet simple people who wanted favors from him?" thought Fred. No, he wouldn't. Fred's advisors were shocked to see him on time and plainly dressed. For Fred, indeed, Herringbone and Chief Advisor wore an approving smile as he bowed. "Your Majesty is early," he said. "The people will be delighted. They've been queuing since dawn." "Show them in, Herringbone," said the king, settling himself on his throne and gesturing to Spittleworth and Flapoon to take their seats on either side of him. The doors were opened, and one by one the petitioners entered. Fred's subjects often became tongue-tied when they found themselves face to face with the real live king whose pictures hung in their town halls. Some began to giggle or forgot what they'd come for, and once or twice people fainted. Fred was particularly gracious today, and each petition ended with the king handing out a couple of gold coins, or blessing a baby, or allowing an old woman to kiss his hand. Today, though, while he smiled and handed out gold coins and promises, the words of Daisy Dovetail kept echoing in his head. Selfish, vain, and cruel. He wanted to do something special to prove what a wonderful man he was, to show that he was ready to sacrifice himself for others. Every king of Cornucopia had handed out gold coins and trifling favors on the day of petition. Fred wanted to do something so splendid that it would ring down the ages, and you didn't get into history books by replacing a fruit farmer's favorite hat. The two lords on either side of Fred were becoming bored. They'd much rather have been left to loll in their bedrooms until lunchtime than to sit here and listen to peasants talking about their petty troubles. After several hours, the last petitioner passed gravely out of the throne room, and Flapoon, whose stomach had been rumbling for nearly an hour, heaved himself out of his chair with a sigh of relief. "Lunchtime," boomed Flapoon. But just as the guards were attempting to close the doors, he kerfuffled was heard, and the doors flew open once more. Chapter 9. The Shepherd's Story. The Shepherd's Story. "Your Majesty," said Herringbone, hurrying toward King Fred, who'd just risen from the throne. "There's a shepherd from the marshlands here to petition you, sire. He's a little late. I could send him away if your Majesty wants his lunch." "A marshlander," said Spittleworth, waving his scented handkerchief beneath his nose. "Imagine, sire. Dashed impertinence, being late for the king," said Flapoon. "No," said Fred, after a brief hesitation. "No. If the poor fellow has traveled this far, we shall see him." "Send him in, Herringbone." The chief advisor was delighted at this further advice of the new king and considerate king, and hurried off to the double doors to tell the guards to let the shepherd inside. The king settled himself back on his throne, and Spittleworth and Flapoon sat back down on their chairs, their expressions sour. The old man, who now tottered up the long red carpet toward the throne, was very weather-beaten and rather dirty, with a straggly beard Patch closed and snatched off his hat as he approached the king, looking thoroughly frightened. And when he reached the place where people usually bowed and curtsied, he fell to his knees instead. "Your Majesty," he wheezed. "Your Majesty." Spittleworth imitated him softly, making the old shepherd sound like a sheep. Flapoon's chins trembled with silent laughter. "Your Majesty," continued the shepherd, "I have traveled for 5 long days. I have traveled for 5 long days for to see ye. It has been a hard journey. I has ridden in hayricks when I could, and walked when I couldn't, and my boots is all holes." "Oh, get on with it, do," muttered Spittleworth, his long nose still buried in his handkerchief. "But at the time I was traveling, I thought of an old Patch, sire, and how ye helped me if I could but reach the palace." "What is old Patch, good fellow?" asked the king, his eyes upon the shepherd. "A much darned trousers." "'Tis my old dog, sire, or was, I should perhaps say," replied the shepherd, his eyes filling with tears. "Ah," said King Fred, fumbling with the money purse at his belt. "Then, good shepherd, take these few gold coins and buy yourself a new." "Nay, sire, thank ye, but it bain't a question of gold," said the shepherd. "I can't find myself a puppy easy enough, though it'll never match an old Patch." The shepherd wiped his nose on his sleeve. Spittleworth shuddered. "Well then, why have you come to me?" asked King Fred as kindly as he knew how. "To tell ye, sire, how Patch met his end." "Ah," said King Fred, his eyes wandering to the golden clock of the mantelpiece. "Well, we'd love to hear the story, but we are rather wanting out our lunch." "'Twas the Ickabog that ate him, sire," said the shepherd. There was an astonished silence, and then Spittleworth and Flapoon burst out laughing. The shepherd's eyes overflowed with tears, which fell sparkling onto the red carpet. "Ah, they've laughed at me from Jerobe to Charlesville, sire, when I've told them why I was coming to see you. I've told them why I was coming to see ye. Laughed themselves silly, they have, and told me I was daft in the head. But I seen the monsters with me own 2 eyes, and so did poor Patch afore he was 8. King Fred felt a strong urge to laugh along with the 2 lords. He wanted his lunch, and he wanted to get rid of the old shepherd, but at the same time that horrid little voice was whispering, "Selfish, vain, cruel," inside his head. "Why don't you tell me what happened?" King Fred said to the shepherd, and Spittleworth and Flapoon stopped laughing at once. "Well, sire," said the shepherd, wiping his nose on his sleeve again, "'twas twilight, and the right foggy, and Patch and me was walking home round the edge of the marsh. Patch sees Marsh Teasel." "Sees a what?" asked King Fred. "A Marsh Teasel, sire. Them bald rat-like things what lives in the marsh. Not bad in pies if you don't mind the tails." Flapoon looked queasy. "So Patch sees the Marsh Teasel," the shepherd continued, "and he gives chase. I shouts for Patch and shouts, sire, but he was too busy to come back. And then, sire, I hears a yelp. 'Patch!' I cries. 'Patch! What's got ye, lad?' But Patch don't come back, sire. And then I sees it through the fog," said the shepherd in a low voice. "Huge it is, with eyes like lanterns, a mouth as wide as their throne, and its wicked teeth shining at me. And I forgets old Patch Sire, and I runs and runs and runs all the way home. And the next day I sets off, sire, to come see the Ickabog ate me dog, sire. I once it punished. The king looked down at the shepherd for a few seconds, then very slowly he got to his feet. Shepherd, said the king, we shall travel north this very day to investigate the matter of the Ickabog once and for all. If any trace of the creature can be found, you may rest assured that it shall be tracked to its lair and punished for its impudence in taking your dog. Now take these few gold coins and hire yourself a ride back home in a hay cart. My lords, said the king, turning to the stunted Spittleworth and Flapoon, pray change into your riding gear and follow me to the stables. There is a new hunt afoot. Stay tuned for chapter 10. Thank you so much for stopping by, for sticking around.